So what is soil organic carbon, and why is every man and his dog involved in sustainable agriculture and regenerative farming obsessed with soil organic carbon? Well, I'm glad you asked, because my name is Teal Simmons and this is Agriculture Explained. In this video we'll be looking at soil organic carbon and what it is exactly, what are the benefits of it, and how we can improve soil organic carbon on our farms. We'll also be looking about how we can measure this and why it is fundamental to sustainable and regenerative agriculture. So before we start talking about soil organic carbon, I just want to say that everything in this video is for general education purposes only. And I say that because every farm has different soil types, different climate, and different enterprise needs. That means that not all strategies that we talk about will be best for our farms, and not all benefits from soil organic carbon will arise on each farm. So it's best to make up your own mind about your own farm as you know it best. Rightio, with that in mind, let's start talking about soil organic carbon. So before we can try and implement different strategies on our farm to increase our soil organic carbon, we first have to understand what it actually is. So soil organic carbon is the carbon component of soil organic matter, or we can refer to soil organic carbon as SOC and soil organic carbon as SOM. So this is good, but what is soil organic matter? So soil organic matter is the organic part of decomposed plant, animal, or even microbe matter. So this can include, so say a tree falls over, or you plough some green manure back into your soil. All that has to first break down before it's considered soil organic matter. And so it's within this soil organic matter that you have soil organic carbon. So all soil organic carbon comes from organic matter in the first place. So if we can take organic matter and put it into our ground where it can decompose, then we can increase our soil organic matter and then increase our soil organic carbon. So that will be the whole context and perspective that we'll be looking at this video through. So we're looking at how we can increase our soil organic carbon by increasing our soil organic matter. Soil organic carbon is fundamental to sustainable and regenerative agriculture. So in this graph we can see soil organic carbon in tonnes per hectare dating back to 1900. And so what we can see is that we pretty much have this maximum level up until 1920, and that's really when you start implementing, or we started implementing a lot of our industrial agricultural techniques. Straight after this we get a massive dip, almost halving the total amount of soil organic carbon, with soil organic carbon coming up a little bit up into 2000. So what can we take away from this graph? So really the difference between the maximum and what it is now is what we can increase, and therefore essentially increase our soil fertility. So essentially we can almost double our soil organic carbon in a lot of our soils. So it's about, at the worst, it was about 35 tonnes per hectare. We can take that all the way up to 70. So why are sustainable and regenerative farmers going crazy for soil organic carbon? Well, it comes down to the fertility that soil carbon contributes to our soil. I actually believe it's one of the most important factors that we can contribute to our soil to improve our soil fertility. So what do I mean when I say that soil organic carbon contributes to soil fertility? Well, we can break this up into three sections. Firstly, we can talk about the chemical benefits that soil organic carbon brings. We can also talk about the physical benefits and the biological benefits. There are a lot more benefits than on the board here today, but these are probably the main ones that we'll factor in. So before jumping into the benefits of soil organic carbon, it's best to understand the physical and chemical characteristics of soil. So if you don't know them very well, I'd recommend going and check them out. We have 2 videos on them, so go watch them and come back. So a lot of the benefits from soil organic carbon will contribute to those characteristics. So it's best to understand what they are and how they affect our soil. So the first benefit of soil organic carbon is increasing our cation exchange capacity, and it also increases our anion exchange capacity as well, which is the negatively charged ions. So in general, it increases the capacity for the soil to exchange charged particles or ions. So this is important when exchanging nutrients between our soil and our roots. So if we increase our cationic exchange capacity, we effectively increase the ability for our soil to exchange these nutrients. It also increases our nutrient availability. So when our organic matter breaks down, say an animal decomposes or plant matter decomposes, or even microbes, the nutrients are almost locked away and then broken down and made available to plants. So these include our macronutrients as NPK, so nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. These are really important for our plants' growth and development, so we need a lot of these. So the breakdown of our organic matter will increase these, as well as our trace minerals and micronutrients. And so they're also really important for plant growth and development. Finally, for our chemical benefits, soil organic carbon buffers toxins and harmful substances. So when soil organic carbon buffers against toxins, what happens is that it increases the decomposition of, say, these substances, such as harmful pesticides, and it prevents the negative impacts of these substances. So essentially, it lessens the harmful effect. These also include heavy metals in our soil, and so increasing our soil organic carbon will provide a healthier and less harmful soil. So to our next section, we have our physical properties. So it increases our soil structure. So the soil organic carbon will hold together soil particles into more stable aggregates or PEDs. So we improve stable aggregates. Now this helps to prevent erosion. It also allows roots to permeate through the soil. It just holds the soil together, makes it less massive, so blocky, reduces compaction. If you need a refresher on soil structure, that's in the physical properties of soil. Secondly, we have porosity. So porosity is pretty much the amount of space between our soil particles. So if we have a really high porosity, it means there's a lot of space. If not, then there's no space between it, which can cause compaction issues. So porosity is important for gas exchange, water absorption, infiltration rates, also root permeability. So this is almost affects how easy things are able to move through our soil. So we want a nice, fairly high porosity so that gas can move in and out of our soil, and that our roots can move through the soil and grow. So soil organic carbon will increase the porosity, also increase structure, so providing a better medium pretty much for our plants to grow their roots through, and gas and water to move through. Because soil organic matter is charged, it means that it can hold onto more water. So it increases soil water holding capacity. Now this is really good as we want to store as much water as we can in our soil. This prevents it from, say, running off and losing it. Water holding capacity also reduces the evapotranspiration that we get off our land. So essentially we're holding more water in when it rains so that our plants can use it when they need to. And as I said before, infiltration rates are increased due to the porosity and soil structure. So essentially the physical benefits for our soil organic carbon is increasing the ability for our soil to hold say water. It also increases the permeability of our soil for gas to move through, reduces erosion through stable aggregates. Now for our final biological benefits. Now I believe this is probably one of the most overlooked benefits. We don't really consider our microbes. Maybe that's because we can't see them, but microbes are really important and fundamental part of our soil ecology. So soil organic matter will provide food for our microbes. Now this is really important as we want to sustain a happy population of microbes so that they can perform different functions like decomposition, nitrogen fixation, nitrification, ammonification. Like there's a lot that our microbes do. So this supports microbe activity. As I was saying, it helps our soil be healthy, and it also helps our plants grow. Now it also suppresses weeds. Now you wouldn't think of this, but increasing our soil organic carbon suppresses disease that can be stored in our soil. So increasing our soil organic carbon will benefit our plants and our animals by reducing pathogen load within our soil. It also promotes root growth in our plants, and also assists in nutrient recycling. So all of these are some of the benefits we get from our soil organic carbon. Now there are many more, and I actually put a post out on Facebook, and a lot of people replied with extra benefits. Some that I didn't know of, but I'll put them up now. So keep in mind that soil organic carbon is a massive benefit to our soil. It massively improves our soil fertility. But one of the best things about increasing soil organic carbon is that it's a long-term benefit. It's not just one short-term solution, such as applying a lot of fertiliser. It's actually, if we manage our soil organic carbon properly, this can be multiple years. And it's really the basis of improving our soil fertility and increasing our farm's productivity. So essentially, we want to increase as much soil organic carbon as we can to reap all of these benefits. So now that we know the benefits of soil organic carbon, I bet you'll all be wondering how we can increase it so that we can increase our soil fertility. Well, it's very easy concept on how to increase our soil organic carbon, and it comes down to two factors. So the first one is carbon sequestration, and this is moving carbon into our soil. The second one that we need to learn is carbon protection, and that's keeping our carbon in the soil, because there's no point in moving all this carbon into our soil if it's just going to be lost back into the atmosphere. So we'll start with carbon sequestration. So if you're familiar with the carbon cycle, you'll know that plants take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and then move it into compounds such as glucose. So now the carbon is stored within our plants, or if the plants are eaten by our animals, it's stored within our animals or microbes. And so what happens now is that these organisms will die and then go into our soil, where they will decompose, and then as we discussed before, this organic matter will turn into soil organic matter, which will then turn into soil organic carbon. So this step is all about moving that carbon dioxide into our soil. So we can do that a number of ways, but the main concept that we have to understand is that all of these techniques and methods are just taking carbon dioxide from the air and then locking them or storing them in our soil. So the first one is crop rotation. So crop rotation is changing what crop you have in a particular soil over different seasons. So the way this benefits soil carbon is that different plants have different ways that interact with soil. So if you're constantly changing that, you make sure that you introduce the soil to different inputs. So like legumes introduce a lot of nitrogen into your soil, and then if you follow that up with a really broad leafy plant, such as say sorghum or something that produces a lot of biomass, the input of changing our plants or crops will result in more microbial activity, which will sequester more soil carbon. So another way of doing this, I guess, is increasing your biodiversity within your pastures. So if you have a really wide range of pastures, lots of different diversity, it will, you won't really need crop rotation, as all the different crops are almost within that pasture. So the next one is microbe activity. So we know microbes are responsible for decomposing organic matter. And so without these guys, we won't be able to decompose, say, plant matter, animal matter. So it's really up to these guys to move our organic matter into soil organic matter. Animal and green manure. So animal manure, we know what that is. It's manure from animals. Green manure is, it's actually not a manure like an animal manure, but rather it's just plant mass. Say you slash a paddock and you just leave that matter on the surface and then you let that decompose. So this increases the amount of organic matter there is to decompose, and then that will increase our soil organic carbon. So the next one is grazing management. Now, grazing management is really important if you have livestock, because it can be a really helpful tool or it can be a really damaging tool. So depending on how you use it, grazing management can increase animal manure, and it also removes plant matter. Now this can be a good or a bad thing, because there's an effect on plants where if you stress it just a little bit, you actually get an increase of growth than if you left it alone. So we can use our grazing management to boost our plants' growth. If you graze it too much, the plants can actually be set back and then preventing the photosynthesis, which prevents us sequestering carbon. So it's a fine line between grazing too much and not grazing enough, because we want to, at the end of the day, grow plants or grow animals so that we can sell and then drive profits for our business. So a way we can change our grazing management is to implement a strategy called rotational grazing. Now imagine if you have 10 different paddocks. So instead of having all say cows graze across all 10 paddocks, that's called continuous grazing. Instead of doing that, we're going to lock them in the first paddock until the pasture goes down to probably a late stage phase 1, so just before the maximum growth, vegetative growth stage of the plant. And then once that stage is reached, then we move them into our second paddock. So the reason why we'll do that is so that the plants, they're not super grazed down, that they need to put a lot of energy into restoring themselves, but they can go straight back into that more late stage vegetative stage, and then we get the most amount of biomass production. And then if we do that across all our paddocks, we give the first paddock lots of time to recharge by the time the cows come back to that paddock. So this is better than, say, a continuous grazing, because then the cows can, in a continuous grazing, the cows can go from paddock 1 to paddock 10 back to paddock 1, and so it doesn't give it that much time to recharge and grow back. So another strategy that we can implement is the use of perennial pastures. So a perennial is a plant that lives across many different years. So not like an annual, which is just 1 year or 1 season. A perennial will live across multiple different years. Now, because perennials can live across lots of different years, it has a lot of time to increase its root growth. So you get really deep roots with your perennials. So that will hold your soil together, but it'll also move carbon into your soil through the roots. So that when this perennial dies, the roots will then decompose and it's already in the soil. So you don't need to move that green manure into your soil, it's already there. So we can use perennial pastures. It's also good, I guess this is going back to the idea of a really diverse group of pastures, is that we want perennial pastures, we want like summer annuals, winter annuals, and then we get a constant input of different pastures. So when your summer annuals die, then that will go decompose while our winter annuals are growing, and then vice versa. So they are all ways we can increase our soil carbon, and there's lots of different other ways, and it really depends on your soil, your climate, your region. Different regions have different plants, and so these are just a few that will give you ideas. So anything that increases the amount of carbon that you put back into your soil via organic matter will ultimately move carbon into your soil and increase soil organic carbon. So now we want to protect this carbon that we put into our soil. So there's 2 different ways that we can lose soil organic carbon. So that's the first one is through erosion. So we're physically just losing that carbon. And the second one is through oxidation, where you expose the soil organic carbon to oxygen, and essentially it almost burns without a flame. So it oxidizes and then goes back into carbon dioxide. So the whole idea of this is that we're protecting our soil carbon. So a way we can do this is implementing a no-till or a reduced till strategy. And so what this does is it prevents oxygen from reaching our soil organic carbon by not turning up our soil. And so this will reduce oxidation of our soil organic carbon and then keep it in our soil. Another way that we can keep carbon in our soil is maintaining ground cover or stubble. And so this is more for reducing erosion, as ground cover and stubble will reduce the erosive impact of rain and wind. So we've got a video out on ground cover, would recommend. It tells you everything you need to know about ground cover and protecting your soil from erosion. Another method we can implement is using trees. So by using trees, such as by using them as a windbreak, we can slow down the velocity of our wind, which will protect our soil from blowing away. Now, it shouldn't blow away too much if you have a lot of ground cover, but if you don't, trees are a great way to slow down the wind. And then it also, trees also provide lots of soil organic carbon through their roots. So say if the tree then dies or falls over, the roots will then decompose into soil organic carbon. So the whole idea of carbon protection is to protect our carbon from erosion. So anything that prevents erosion and prevents our soil carbon from being exposed to oxygen, which will prevent oxidation. And so these are two ways that we can increase our soil organic carbon, and that is moving carbon into our soil, and that's pretty much through increasing our organic matter and then putting it into our soil. And then the second one is protecting the soil organic carbon that's already in our soil. So again, all these strategies do depend on your soil type and your climate, and won't work on all farms, but it's just a general idea to help us get the understanding of how this works. Now, I also put this out on our Facebook page, and everyone gave back a lot of different responses on how they've increased soil organic carbon on their farms. So it was great to see everyone implementing different strategies to increase their soil organic carbon. So now that we know what soil organic carbon is, the benefits of it, and how we can increase it on our farm, we may want to know how to measure our soil organic carbon so that we can compare it across years or across our farm. So I would recommend just sending it off to a soil lab and then they send you back the results. But in essence, this is what they could do. So there's two main methods. The first is the acid digestion method, and then the second one is the combustion method. So the combustion method, I'd say, is probably a bit better than acid digestion, mainly because this one here doesn't pick up on all soil organic carbon, whereas the combustion method does. So hypothetically, if you were to do this at home, now I'm not recommending it, but if you were, you'd get your sample of soil, you'd lay it on a pan, put it in your oven for like 8 hours. That way it gets rid of the water. So you want to evaporate all the water out. Then you're going to weigh your sample. So you're just going to have really dry soil. You're going to weigh that, take the weight. Then you're going to get, say, a blowtorch. You're going to burn all the dirt. So you're going to burn all of the soil organic carbon out because it's flammable. And then you're going to weigh the leftover sample. So what will happen is the difference in mass. So if you took the weight after drying and then you minused it to the weight after you burnt it, that's why it's called combustion method. The difference in that will be the amount of soil organic carbon you have. So that will be expressed as a percentage of carbon by weight. So say you lost 1%, 1 gram per 100 gram of soil, of your soil sample. That will be expressed as 1% carbon, or soil organic carbon. So if you have say 7%, that's 7 grams of soil carbon in 100 grams of soil. So if you want to work out your soil organic matter, you just timed your soil organic carbon by 1.72. Now that is assuming that your soil organic matter is made up of 58% soil organic carbon. So this is just a rough number, and it probably will change for different soil types. But if you want a rough idea, you times it by 1.72. So now it's probably more helpful to know how much soil organic carbon you have across a hectare, so across the area. So if we want to do that, so we measure that in tons of carbon per hectare. So to calculate that, you take your percentage, so soil organic carbon percentage, times that by your soil bulk density. So that is the amount of soil inside a specific area. And so you want that in megagrams per meters cubed. And then you're going to times that by your sampling depth. So some soils are deeper than others. So you times it by your sampling depth, and that will take into consideration how deep your soil is. So for example, if you had some soil that had a 1% soil organic carbon percentage, has a bulk density of 1.4, and you sampled it to 30 centimeters deep, then you'd have a soil organic carbon of 42 tons per hectare. Then you would have 42 tons of soil organic carbon across a hectare. So then we can use that to compare, I guess, across different parts of our farm or across different areas. Now, understanding this will allow you to compare different techniques. And like how I was saying, it's probably just easier and more time effective to just send it off to the soil labs. They'll send you back the results, and you could probably just get a couple of other tests done at the same time, say your nitrogen levels or your pH. But if you do want to do it yourself, then I wouldn't recommend it, but you know how to do it, I guess. Rightio, so we've just talked about the importance of soil organic carbon. So what is it exactly? It's pretty much organic matter that's decomposed with our soil. We get a range of benefits. We get chemical benefits, physical benefits, and biological benefits, all of which improve the productivity and fertility of our soil. Ways we can increase it is pretty much putting carbon straight into our soil. This is done by increasing the organic matter in our soil. The way that the carbon gets into our soil is by taking carbon dioxide out of the air, putting it into our plants, and then the plant matter, either by itself or after being processed by animals, goes back into our soil where it decomposes. And to measure this, it's best to just send it off to soil labs. So now you know why every sustainable farmer loves soil organic carbon. It fundamentally provides soil fertility to our soil and increases the productivity of our soil. If you thought this video was really helpful in explaining why soil organic carbon is fundamental for sustainable, actually not even just sustainable, fundamental for all agriculture, anything you need to grow plants, soil organic carbon is fundamental for. Anyway, if you thought that was really helpful, share with someone you think would really benefit from that, and also subscribe so you can see some more of our content. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Till Simmons, and this is Agriculture Explained.